Are you playing through Diablo 4 but want to know some of the best places to farm for the gear that you actually want, as well as to get a ton of XP while you're doing it? Well, here in today's video, we're going to go over some of the best farms and activities that you can farm in Diablo to help you out whether you're on your climb to level 50 plus or you're just trying to get to the next world tier like World Tier 3 into World Tier 4. There are a ton of choices when it comes to where and what you should farm in Diablo 4, so we wanted to be helpful and round together a bunch of options for you to pick from for what's right for you. Of course, new and better farms are appearing pretty much every other day at this point, so make sure you're subscribed down below so we can keep you updated as soon as these things are found. Within these farms, we've included ways that you can farm up your renown easier, get a ton of Obols, get the gear whether it's uniques, sacreds or ancestrals that you want, a ton of upgrade materials, of course XP and more. So hopefully there's something here for you that you can try out and will save you a bit of time as well as make you more powerful within the game. But one of the ways that we've found as a proven method to increase your rare gear drop chance is to drop a like on the video. It's 100% legit. So hit that like button and tell us if you found a very good farm that you feel not too many people know about down in the comments below to help out your fellow community members. Because you never know, someone else might have an even better farm, so if we all share, we can learn together as a community. So let's kick it off by going over a party method to split farm renown to speed it up for everyone in your party. Of course, the renown is super important. It increases the maximum amount of Obols you can have so you can stay out farming for longer. It's a great way to get some easy gold, to get more maximum potions, and of course it gives those juicy skill points. So you might want to think about farming renown. We certainly are. This one's actually super easy to do but does require party play to speed it up, so having friends or people that you can add into your group is going to make this much better. You can also do this anywhere on the map, so there's no requirement for a specific spot or area that you need to have unlocked. Simply grab some party members and then go separate into the world and complete different dungeons each. If everyone in your party is capable of clearing a dungeon on their own, effectively you can clear 4 dungeons at once and they will all tick as complete for each party member, even if they are in a different dungeon themselves. Essentially, think of it like this. You group up into a party, everyone splits out and does a different dungeon each. As each person finishes their dungeon, that dungeon becomes complete and unlocks for each party member. That means they get the aspect for that dungeon, and it gives you renown for completing that dungeon. So if you haven't obtained all of the Codex of Power aspects, you might want to consider doing it this way because it's essentially 4 times faster in a 4-man party than it is doing it solo. But you might be wondering what the best ways to get a ton of XP and rare gear drops is. And of course, one way to do this is to farm a dungeon that has a whole ton of elite mobs for you to clear out. Each of these elite mobs will have a chance to drop some of the rarest loot available to you at your current level or world tier, so we've rounded together 3 great dungeons here that the community are currently using to farm. The first one is Champion's Demise. Everyone is really loving this one so far, so if you haven't tried it out, definitely head on over there. It's great for XP, so the more people you have in your party, the better and faster this one's going to be for farming those levels and Paragon points. The dungeon requires you gather 3 stone tablets, and to do this you have to split off in 3 different directions. This means in a party of 3 or more, you can each split off and clear out all of the elites on the way to the quest objective. Then you bring the stone tablet back, more elites will spawn, and you can take on the boss at the end. If you do this with a full party, not only is the overall dungeon quicker to complete, but you all get the XP for every monster killed within the dungeon. So it's faster, and there is a lot of elites in this dungeon, so you get a ton of XP and a ton of chances at uniques, legendaries, ancestrals, sacreds, and all that good stuff depending on your world tier. But then what makes it extra insane is that you can instantly reset the dungeon and go back in. In party play, you simply leave party, which will then kick you out of the dungeon to the entrance. From here, you invite everyone back into the party and just go back in. The whole dungeon will have reset, and then you can just repeat this process. Meanwhile, if you are doing this in solo, which will be slower but is still very doable and fun, you will need to leave the dungeon, then leave game, load back in, and go back into the dungeon and repeat. You can find Champion's Demise here on the map. It's in the Untamed Scarps in the Dry Steppes area, and the closest fast travel point is Durande. Next up, we have an extra bonus one for you guys. Because of how insanely good this dungeon is, you need to try this one. This dungeon is located in the lower right area of the map, nearest this fast travel point, and then make your way over to here, the ruins of ERIDU. Much like some of the other dungeons that have been nerfed in the past, this dungeon contains a ton of elite packs and extra elites that instantly spawn on top of you. We aren't sure how long this one will last until it's nerfed, so we recommend trying it as soon as possible because the number of elites in here is kind kind of insane. We recommend clearing the first 2 objectives within the dungeon, as this is where all of the elite packs are. These elites will drop a ton of gear for you, and depending on your world tier, this can include Ancestrals, Legendaries, and Uniques. So once you've reached the boss, you can then leave party to instantly refresh the dungeon, or leave the dungeon, port to town, and port back, and this will also refresh it in solo play. And if you find any other insane dungeon farms like this one, hook us up in the comments down below, because everyone's on the hunt for that next best dungeon to farm. But next up we have ANICA'S claim. This is another fantastic one for farming XP. This one's actually super quick to completely finish the dungeon, but it's not quite as quick as Champion's Demise. This dungeon is fantastic because it has a ton of elite mobs in it, and it's also very repeatable, especially in early games because it's in the Fractured Peaks area. The dungeon is filled with very narrow corridors, so AoE clears and fast burst damage is great because you can easily take out those elites. This one is found in Malnock in the Fractured Peaks. It's east of Kyovashad, closest to the fast travel point where the Bear Tribe refuge is. But next up is one you will need to try out if you haven't done it at least once. It's the Iron Hold dungeon. This is essentially the same thing as the previous Morgan's work, which has since been nerfed. There is massive elite packs inside, which means you can clear out 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them all in one spot and get showered in a bunch of loot and gear. It is located in the ruins of Rakhat Keep, so you can easily fast travel there if you have that point. You can see it here on the map. What you want to do is clear out the first section of the dungeon, which will mean finding the elite, killing it, grabbing the key, and opening the door. After this, you simply explore the second half of the dungeon, and somewhere inside will be up to 2 elite packs that will have an absolute ton of them all grouped together. There's usually one on each side of the map with the objective for the second part of the dungeon, so it's pretty easy to find them once you give it a couple goes and you get the flow of it. You'll get an absolute ton of drops at once. If you can do this on World Tier 4, it's an insane way to get a load of Ancestrals. But speaking of the Morgan's work previously nerfed dungeon, we also wanted to include in here an insane way to get Obols just outside of that dungeon. You simply head to the same fast travel point, but then you head south and you go just outside of the Morgan's work dungeon. Here is a fantastic farm for gear and Obols. Obols, of course, are used at the mystery vendors in town to get loot for a specific gear slot that you need from that vendor. Remember, they can also roll to be sacred, so you want to always buy them when they're sacred. But you will have to be over level 53 for that to happen. The overall way that this farm works is super quick and easy. You simply go here and complete the world event that is nearby. After finishing it, or if it isn't there, you simply enter the dungeon and then leave the dungeon. This will then change the instance that you're in after leaving the dungeon, and with a couple tries, the world event will be back for you to complete once again. You simply repeat this process. Clear the world event, go in and out of the dungeon until you see the world event again. Then loop this process over and over. You'll get a ton of Obols and gear really fast from the reward chest at the end, because this world event is very fast to finish and usually just involves freeing captives or destroying some towers. So if you want to try your luck for specific item pieces at the mystery vendor, this one is absolutely fantastic. But outside of this, Blizzard have actually done a really good job at making some of the open world activities super rewarding, so we wanted to tell you some of the best activities that you should really be doing. After you have unlocked World Tier 3, you can then start doing Nightmare Dungeons at Tier 15 and higher. Nightmare Dungeons are actually insane for getting unique gear. This is because you are guaranteed 2 drops at the end, kind of like a reward screen for finishing the dungeon, and on here you pretty much always get at least 1 Sacred Legendary, and that also has a very good chance to be a unique. Remember, you can craft higher Nightmare Sigils by visiting the vendor in town, and you can get the powder by salvaging the lower tier ones that you don't want to use. So we recommend doing as high a nightmare tier as possible that you can with your build. Tier 15 plus is generally good, but remember, tier 20 plus will also start getting you those Ancestrals. Next up, you should be doing Helltides. These are timed events where you essentially go in and defeat a load of monsters and do a load of events to get cinders, which you can then use to purchase gear pieces from specific chests within the Helltide. You can find a Helltide by looking for a big red area on your map, and you will only get access to these after completing the game's story. This is a great place to farm because it has a high density of world events to finish, a bunch of roaming bosses around the place, and the amount of treasure goblins that spawn within this area seems pretty juiced. We have found that they're actually pretty common within the Helltides. For us, within about 10 minutes of farming one, we had already encountered 3 treasure goblins, so take that for what you will. The important thing that you will want to do in the Helltide is farm those cinders, and then start searching for the chest of mysteries, which seems to give you a reliable 4 legendary drops. This chest of mysteries will not be marked on your map, so you will have to explore and look for it on your minimap. Remember, HELLTIDEs also give you a ton of resources that you need for re-rolling gear and enhancing gear at the vendors. So not only is it a great place to farm for legendaries and uniques, but it's also a needed farm to get the materials to improve the substats on your gear. And next we wanted to highlight Legion events. These are timed events that seem to pop up around every 15 to 30 minutes on your map. This is essentially a big event where a bunch of players will come to complete together. The reason why a lot of players will come here to do this is because it rewards you with a bunch of chests and loot at the end. You generally want to defeat all of the enemies that continuously spawn during the event, and then get the mastery reward by defeating 3 bosses that spawn. If you get the mastery reward, you essentially get an extra chest at the end, which is very good. This is also an event where you can get a bunch of cosmetics for your horse, so if you want to look pimped out, Legion events is something that you want to pay attention to. But what farms have you found that you are really enjoying? Hook us up in the comments down below and drop a like on the video. It's for the YouTube algorithm, so thank you so much for supporting us. And the 2 videos on screen now, we think you'll really enjoy if you did enjoy this one. You don't have to watch them if you don't want to, but if you did enjoy this video, you're probably going to like these ones too. And then tell us what you think after watching in the comments down below.